against nothing less than Zeri usually. So will BLG go towards the good old Nami Lucian lane? We'll have to see. It seems to be the evolving. Well,
Shocker.
Evolving. It's not evolved in about 4 months. But
yeah, shocker that we're about to get a Lucian Nami versus Zeri yuumi. I mean, honestly, at this point, maybe it's worse than the Aphelios Jinx meta last year. I don't know anymore. I'm starting to feel like it is, but we'll see if they just lock in the duo, right? There is a potential for some funniness to come through, but I expect that to be pretty tried and true. As we said, I feel like a lot of the eyes on are towards the top side of the map, towards jungle and things like that for these matchups, and there's a lot of insurance policies being bought up in the bot lane, but I think facilitation for jungle is exactly what BLG needs for Shun, and they get it.
Yeah, really like Shun on those engages. Specifically, I think it was Wukong, and he was on the buy as well in that JDU series. So know him very happily as one of the engagers, and I'm liking the evolution rather of Shun in general. Is kind of just starting to sacrifice a little bit more. I feel like it is kind of the jungle meta as a whole anyway, to kind of just, you know, go in, set up your laners in particular in the early to mid game and just throughout. But I think he's definitely been filling that role quite well, considering, especially off the back of last year, we're quite used to seeing Shun on pure carry champions whilst he was on IG. So changing up his playstyle quite well. There's the Zeri that we expected. Wukong will be in the hands of haoye. So nothing out of the ordinary so far in the first 3 picks of both sides. It's now all about the bans, and I feel like for BLG, Sylas is likely going to be removed out of Care's hands. I think he just looked to take away the comfort out of the mid lane, and we'll see what they decide to go towards beyond that. They will open out of the Akali though.
I am just saying, we got the boring stuff out of the way, everybody. All right, you can pay attention now. We're gonna get to the solo lane. We're gonna get to the fun. We're gonna get to what is gonna be crazy. This, hopefully, at least that's what I'm hoping for. So as you said, the Akali banned away. The Ahri also banned away, so some of that mobility out of mid lane taken away from the Rise and the Ahri against Yagao. We have seen a pretty heavy reliance on those types of champions so far for BLG to try to find success with the matchup of Shun, Finn, and Yagao. That top trio is just so ridiculously good. We get the Jace ban by BLG against Xiaolaohu.
Okay, interesting. So
it's one of his comfort picks.
It is one of his comfort picks, yes, but I was kind of anticipating that Sylas ban a little bit more. So we'll see where BLG decide to go on their 4th pick, because Jace and Akali both technically flex picks in their own right. But we definitely see Jace more in top, and we definitely see Akali way more in the mid lane. So split on the bans on their second phase.
Fiora, I guess. You know?
I guess they just,
who'd have thunk?
And that's pretty fair, but he also has something that was pretty scary in the JDG series, known as the Camille. So I wonder if that will come out. There are a lot of pretty strong into Camille champions already banned away. So if they want to give Yagao a counter pick, I feel like Camille blind wouldn't be too bad. However, the Galio definitely sets up for it on 5 anyway. So,
it's literally the perfect pick. That's exactly what we wanted to see for BLG, was facilitation through jungle and a way to match up with Yagao and Shun, and we have that combo now.
Yeah, we do indeed. By Galio, and then I expect Camille will be coming on the final pick for BLG. Let's see what FPX will give us. Something very special in the Ksante. Now, I would usually be very hyped for it. Mazel, I've been enjoying so much.
It ain't looked good recently, Jamada.
It ain't looked good. It's not looked good.
It's not looking good.
Struggling in the LPL so far, it feels like. I'm not even sure if it's picked up a game yet, to be honest. I would have to go and double check some stats, but anytime I've seen Ksante on the Rift, it's pretty much not one. We'll have to, you know, watch that one with bated breath, as there you go, Care gets a silence.
So he does get that comfort Sylas. I think that's another big thing. I kind of want to see how opting into comfort would do for FPX. And yeah, they didn't get the Camille or the Jace, things like that for Xiaolaohu. I do wonder how he does on the Ksante, but seeing Care on the Sylas is an immediate benefit, I feel like, for FPX. And now I'm sure there it is. Bin's gonna lock into Camille, and there is a potential for another Bin 1v9 performance here tonight.
Yes, there is, and I mean, he's got all the facilitation he needs. Another point and click lockdown through Shun. He's also got Yagao on the Galio, and on the bottom side, you know, Nami Lucian, yes, you want to play towards it, but if you need to leave it on sort of a pseudo island where it can be self-sufficient, oftentimes it can be enough. Though we have definitely seen some pretty strong duo answers player-wise from Zeri yuumi players into this lane. So we'll see how Elk can get on against Lwx and Lele. But BLG, like we've kind of been echoing are very happy to lean on Bin for the carry potential, and he's got the perfect composition around him to do just that.
So big things coming into this one. We had already said the duality of kind of the structural project for both these teams, how they're approaching the year, but specifically in game, the question of BLG is how do they find consistent and constant play through their solo lanes, through this combo of jungle and solo lanes, while FPX, they've got to play through care, and especially LWX as a late game carry for themselves. We've already seen Care really take the reins of the carry mantle here for FPX already, even in their loss, and I want to see that continue here today, Jamada.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like FPX as well, even though they may lack on the true engage tools consistently throughout, I think they're not really going to care about that in this kind of game where they're going to have Camille, Vi, and Galio jumping on their head. And with that in mind, I feel like they've actually given themselves pretty good tools to deal with some of that dive as well. Just Yuumi existing, Sylas also can snatch away that Galio and use it defensively for his team if he has to. Wukong pretty good at peeling backwards as well. Isn't always just about diving in, trying to assassinate those core targets sometimes.
True.
Just the disruption of the double cyclone can be really, really big in just buying those crucial seconds for the likes of Zeri to get off the damage he needs to take down some of those divers. Here we are, game number 1, Mazel.
We are in the final day before the Chinese New Year break. You hear all the audience cheers, and as we hit the rifts, it is FPX versus BLG, striving for their first wins in the season in Spring Split to go into a break with their head held high to some extent. We do just get a traditional line of skirmish here between FPX and BLG, maybe a little bit more to say later on. But again, back to the big points. I think we do need to set a bar in this game, specifically one on each side. Bin, I mean, if he just continues to be this non-stop carry, even if they're losing, if they find a way to hone that in, I mean, that is a conversation for potentially best top laner in the LPL, right? He has shown that he is head and above a lot of these matchups. And on the other side, you've got to set a bar for Care, while be it a little bit lower of a bar as he's a newer player, a new developing piece for FPX. This man has also just picked up the carry mantle. And I think if they could find ways to buy into both those pieces respectively for each team, that's where they find success.
Yeah, definitely. I think on the FPX side, right, Care, you know, showing us so much promise last year, and FPX as a whole, once Summit was added to that lineup, giving us that fantastic summer run. It was a big pleasure to watch, and to see Care kind of come into his own as well. Sylas pick, Swain being in meta definitely kind of helped him out as well. And on the opposite side, I mean, Bin starting off the year pretty much just gapping 369. There wasn't really much.
That's a pretty good way to start the year.
It's a good year to start, right? And there's not too many other. Well, let me retract my half statement. The LPL has plenty of stacked top laners, but as far as, you know, the expectations of tops, 369 is pretty up there. And of course, Bin is, but to make such short work of him throughout that series really does have to make you wonder, what will Bin also do to some of the other premier top laners here in the LPL once we get around to him? Xiaolaohu is going to have his work cut out for him, and he's going to have his work cut out for him already because he can't get ganked.
Yeah, potentially here. For that level 3. He stepped back up. Wall breaker not going to connect there. So nice little movement. Ghost was utilized by Xiaolaohu. Gets the thumbs up as he walks out by Shun. But early gank goes a little bit wide there. You got a little taunt in the mid lane. Yagao going hand to hand with Care. I feel like Care wins that one out with the sustain for sure. But we're getting at least some lane aggression from both sides, honestly. A couple summoner spells burned in the bot lane. 2 on the side of FPX, and just the ignite by L.
Ignite by L. You can see haoye just shadowing over this lane, giving it a bit of coverage. They know Shun's on the top side, so no threat of a gank. That's why LWX and Lele were so happy to just kind of aggress forward a little bit there in response to the trade itself. But all in all, very nice to see both junglers trying to just get, at the very least, a little bit active around their lanes. Shun a little bit more hands-on, knowing Xiaolaohu's Ghost. But I suspect beyond that, we probably won't see too many visits towards the top side.
Yeah.
Unless it's involving Yagao as well. Once that level 6 comes in, I suspect BLG will do their best to get Bin accelerated.
True. I do want to ask you a question here. Maybe you'll have to wait as haoye is actually trying to get a gank onto Yagao. Doesn't really have anything but the flash. Still gets connected on and in some trouble with the stun back though. Is he trading? Oh, flash from Care will get him out of dodge, and unfortunately for Yagao, he will be the first blood to FPX.
Yeah, and real nice, the warrior trips to decoy, tanking up a couple of tower shots for the trouble of that dive, and Care gets out.
Oh, LWX steps up way too far. One little dash, it's not enough. One more, there you go. Elk gets the response, the bubble lands, and it's a quick twofer in the bottom lane for BLG.
Was not expecting that. Oh, I feel like LWX and Lele were actually going to disengage that.
My
now
God.
on the top side, Xiaolaohu.
He lands the ball breaker that time. They have the damage. It's a snowball. It's 3-1. FPX were calm, cool. They were like, okay, we got first blood. Everything's looking good. And then all of a sudden, they find themselves down 2 kills.
Yeah, I just felt like they were going to entirely disengage, but it feels like LWX just wasn't respecting the potential of the turnaround there. He gets clipped by the piercing light through the minions, unfortunately, and Elk just has another dash off cooldown, ready to go.
The bubble
from on. I mean, yuumi doesn't run flash, simple as that. Goes down, double kill. And top side as well, we just saw a repeat gank from Shun through the lane. Xiaolaohu just wasn't expecting it. And all of a sudden, both these side lanes ahead from the get-go for BLG, FPX. I mean, hey, we did kind of set it up, right? Side lanes is where it's at for BLG. FPX is about making sure Care is more than comfortable. So I guess both playing to their conditions, but finding a 2v2 bottom side kill for BLG is going to hurt for FPX majorly.
I mean, that's just a gift on Christmas, right? Like, he was obviously purely focusing top side, right? 2 ganks within just a few moments, and then to just all of a sudden get a double kill bot, like, oh, okay, cool, we got control all over the map. Now, haoye wants to try to wrest control over the Dragon Pit, maybe, but I don't think it's going to be very easy for him to do that. BLG will pull the Dragon out. Actually, looks like they didn't just go ahead and stop it, as Care was roaming down from mid lane as well. And FPX take the position over the Dragon. The bubble lands, though, but Elk is not in position to capitalize.
All right, thank you for the leash. FPX says.
Easy peasy.
Quite nice. Easy peasy. And
another bubble. But Elk is, again, not in position there. If he dashes forward, right, he's just going to take a brunt of damage from LWX. Yeah,
unfortunate. Really on point with his bubbles. We'll see if that continues into the mid game. But FPX, honestly, kind of getting rid of daylight robbery, taking that dragon up. Especially with Elk on just securing their 2v2 lead. I mean, look at the iron difference, right? From Scepter to Dirk and Pickaxe, that's a lot of additional damage on board for Elk. So to be able to get that one away and now kind of know that they may not have to really contest this 2v2 anymore with the dragon gone. BLG kind of losing out on a potential dragon snowball.
Definitely are. I think FPX will gladly take that first objective. I was wondering if we get that focus from Shun on bottom side. He visited, decided not to go off, got 6, now is coming back. But haoye is also down this way. So obviously both teams kind of changing within the game to put a lot of focus and a lot of momentum down in bottom lane on walking in here. Will not end up getting the bubble.
Nope, ends up recalling. Actually thought it was the decoy, but he did actually manage to get the recall off. And now I guess the next port of call for both these teams is just going to be about what's happening with their Rift Herald, right? I think with Elk on having pretty solid priority in the bottom side, they'll always have first move up if they want it. And even though Herald is that top side objective, more times than not it'll actually be decided by what's going on in the bottom lane, who has first move in this port, or who has first move from the bottom lane in general. We'll see though, because haoye is actually there already, and BLG are eyeing up a potential dive by the looks of it. Shun waiting in this back rush behind the Krugs, and Yagao is dipping into fog, so the alarm bells have to be ringing for FPX, but it might be too late.
It might just be. There's the cease and desist. You got the heroic entrance as well, and LWX is just Swiss cheese at this point with all the culling shots going into him. The kitty will fall too, and Elk is at 3-0. Shun is at 2-0, and BLG are off to the races.
Yes, they are. They are getting things kicked off very, very quickly here. Has been
comeback play. Oh, it gets such a dirty hook shot.
They need to change how that works, man.
My God.
It's so obnoxious, but also been playing that out excellently, of course. Can't fault the man using the kit at all. Really nice to get himself out of dodge, and haoye is just out of a flash now because of that. And sure, they get the Herald, but so much damage done to the bottom side. Elk approaching that first iron already. Next recall is going to have the Gale Force. And he is so
serrated
strong.
Dirk. with a little stop. I guess a little damage.
So
it's just a flat damage, right?
It's just a flat damage amp, yeah, and it's really, really obnoxious to deal with. It's a mini power spike in its own right, like the digital pickaxe and the dirk. So much front loaded as a stats.
Nothing that LWX can do. Oh,
he can't move. I mean, you know, and bear in mind, there's also a Camille in this game, so it's not gonna get any better. On the front of, hey, can I move before Galio slams down on my head from the skies? So BLG just executing that dive excellently as massive bottom side lead, massive top side lead in my head. If Camille's not getting put behind, I'll call that a lead in just about any matchup, really.
And I think the biggest issue now is, you know, we came into this saying, you know, how do FPX find their structure? What do they play through here? And I think when BLG have so much control, it's very hard to wrestle that back from them. Because, again, they go with these compositions that are catch you out if you're 1 second in the wrong position. If they're all together, they will just burn you out single target every time. They always have the backup of Yagao, who can join fights, who can be that kind of buffer for the rest of the team, and even some damage in his own right going AP. So I think that the structure for BLG is just set up not to fail at this point, and I think it'll take a lot of working for FPX to find a way into this.
Definitely agree. You can try and abuse Yagao, but like, even then, it's going to be a lot of work to get done, and you're almost certainly going to get outscaled in the bruiser department by Camille if you don't set her behind
the Rift
either.
Herald, though, gives me some hope, I will say. Hopefully, at least haoye can find somewhere to give some gold. I would love to see it on either LWX and Care. Those have been the main carries that we've been setting up, but we'll see what that decision-making process is. We do have completed items coming out on the Rift. Obviously, Everfrost had been completed by Care for a little while. We got the Kempunk Chainsword completed by Shun, and now Gale Force for Elk.
Exactly. First items coming through. BLG very quickly approaching that mid-game spike. You won't be able to utilize on many of these champions. Lucian in particular, just kind of waiting on to finish up that Imperial mandate, and then the burst combo is truly online for the mid-game. Just kind of getting caught off guard by all the spells being dumped onto Lucian, who's dashing forward on your face.
Yep.
Almost certainly one-shot just about anyone for a little while. BLG will start with this dragon. There shouldn't really be any contest here from FPX. In fact, it could even just turn into a bit of a dive here. Look at that.
The damage difference, man. It feels so bad. Like, literally, LWX is on Greaves and a Vampiric Scepter, while Elk has a full item, serrated Dirk, and just the regular boots. Should get LWX caught up a little bit. Yeah, the magic footwear. Oh, mid lane. haoye does find a nice little engage. He also has the Rift Tail to utilize after this one, but the Gao's just too tanky there. Elk taking a little bit of a forward step. Maybe needs to rethink that one as he is forced to flash out. The Rift Herald utilized in mid lane by FPX. Should get the charge off as Care sealing the cease and desist. Does get that one off, but the cease and desist from Shun comes through, and the CC chain is just that. Elk gets another kill, his fourth of the game, and BLG are cleaning house.
Yeah, they are. I mean, a bit of an overstep from the duo in the bottom side. They do force some ultimates out of LWX and Lele, but I mean, it just turns into an immediate rotation towards the mid lane where they catch out haoye, who just wanted to share some gold with Care. Punishes coming thick and fast for BLG. They're already 1,500 up their counterparts. A lot of that is front-loaded right now onto Elk, you'd have to imagine. So if they can at the very least try and pin him down, maybe they can get some even grounds fights, but for the most part, he's only already made one close to a major step too far forward, and he was able to flash out of it. So whilst he has no flash, this is kind of the window for FPX to try and capitalize on that, but he's still going to have the Gale Force, he's still going to have his own dash as Lucian. And with no true point-and-click lockdown, like Shun has with the cease and desist, or like Bin does, it's very difficult to catch him off guard.
Definitely keeping a bit of a side eye on Care continuously here on the Sylas. Is the saving grace, it feels like, a little bit up in CS, has the one kill for the team, and we have already set up this man to be that carry for FPX this year, at least on the duo of LWX and Care. And I'm wondering, you know, the Zeri and the Sylas coming to grips with these, you know, first item completions, second item completions, if they find any wiggle room there, because you still have a while till objectives come up. You have 3 minutes till the dragon, next dragon comes up, could be a second dragon 615. do have 25 seconds for the next Rift Herald, and with the pressure on the map, feels like BLG will be the first one. Oh, we got the 1v1. Been going for his little bit of a solo bolo. We got the all out from Xiaolaohu here. Looks like both will just back away.
Yeah. Xiaolaohu's side, just popping that ultimate, just CCing Bin. Just giving himself a bit of an out, but now he doesn't have that additional ability to potentially use in what could have been a contest, which will almost certainly not be one now from FPX. BLG will pick up second Herald spawn. And I think very fortunately, what could keep FPX in the game, at the very least a little bit longer, is the fact they picked up that first dragon kind of leashed nicely by BLG as yeah.
That's the kind of stuff I love to see, though, from Elk, right? It's testing the waters to some extent. It's keeping pressure on LWX. We all know what LWX has accomplished in the past, right? And keeping pressure on him as the Lucian makes him second-guess a lot of these movements. We've seen a lot of hesitancy from the FPX bot lane because of the absolute aggression from Elk and On and how many bubbles On was landing in the early parts of the game. I think you also got to factor in some of that mental capacity as well.
Yeah, definitely. BLG just keeping their foot on the gas. Just ensuring FPX don't really have much room to breathe. And it just does feel like the options are going to start to dwindle as time goes on if FPX can't find at least somewhere to try and answer back, because BLG are just on the ball, really. Some of the map rotations where they're trying to lay down pressure. It looks like Herald will probably come down behind this wave. They'll look to just chip at this tower, maybe even take it if they can bring it below half, but here's the counter answer.
They find Elk, but he dashes out with the Gale Force as well, gets locked down in the end of it. He does get locked down as well by Care. They take him out. The Vault Breaker charged up by Shun. Is he going to go back in? The bubble doesn't connect, but Bin gets the kill onto haoye. Goes in with the Hextech Cultivate as well, but needs to be very careful. And FPX with the all-out Xiaolaohu to bring them to the fight is bringing BLG to the graves now. The knockback, the damage, LWX trying to pepper them down, but Xiaolaohu is really just pulling FPX back into these fights.
Yeah, excellent fight from Xiaolaohu from FPX. The answer was really solid. It kind of had us worried a bit when Elk was able to get out once that Galio ultimate came down. But fortunately, Care had the cease and desist stolen away from Shun, so the additional lockdown was available. FPX, they answer out really nicely. They get the tier 1 tower. And it's just this angle here from haoye.
So good.
Just about locked down Elk. Unfortunately, the initial burst doesn't actually kill the AD carry of BLG, but Care eventually does clean that up. But it's all about Xiaolaohu, really. Once Bin enters the fight, does take down the jungler, but brought back by the all-out, goes in, and at this point, this is kind of the power point for Ksante, right? We haven't really been able to talk about Ksante positively whenever he's been on the Rift too frequently, but this is one of those moments. One item, level 11. His damage is beginning to spike right now. This is when Ksante is actually at his highest threat level to the backline. Showing off that brilliantly as he was able to secure so many kills on the back end for FPX.
And he was able to block out that hook shot as well. A lot of little bit of spacing things going on for FPX that are going to be super, super important. LWX, though, we said a little bit of an insurance policy for FPX is they still do have their world champion on their roster, and he's kind of showing out in that fashion. Even if he hasn't gotten a kill yet, it's still important to say that his AoE damage, his damage in general in the team fights is going to be super, super crucial if FPX want to clean house in these kinds of situations. But Care himself is rising to that bar we set earlier, Jamada. He is the only one that has really found consistent wins in this game. He's 3-0. He's on 2 items. He's on the Sylas, his comfort champion. If there's a way for FPX to really just reverse this early game into a win, it's going to be through Care.
Absolutely, and we just had the gold being covered up by the observers there. He had well over 2,000 gold on Yagao, so at 2 items, he is going to be one of the core carries for now until LWX can get to that second item mark. haoye as well is actually not doing too bad. He's got the Divine Thunder up, got a core field as well, so working towards what I would imagine is likely a Black Cleaver, just to shred through some of the resist for Xiaolaohu and LWX, but of course just give himself some of that additional damage too. So FPX, all things being brought into account, despite what was a very shaky early game on their part, but also BLG just executing quite well, they're actually in an okay position to try and find themselves another successful fight. Again, if they can pick on Elk, all of a sudden the gold deficit that they find themselves in doesn't feel as bad. It's pretty much all in his hands. However, as we do hover over Bin, he has found his way towards his second item. So Camille is very much online on the side lane and ready, I'm sure Bin will be to come towards those team fights, try and execute whoever we can find at the end of that.
And you can see in these kinds of moments where we don't have any big objectives, obviously, in the maps, the idea for BLG was look for picks, obviously utilize their catch-out potential with what we set up in the draft for them. And if not, you know, it's like fishing. You try for a little bit, you get up, you walk away, come back a little bit later. And I think for BLG as a whole, it's wrested control of the game for some extent, but it feels like, you know, they should have a stronger lead at this point. More than 700 gold. See if they can change that here. Actually care. Nicely walking out of that engagement.
Very good from Care. Care needs to not get caught. He's got the Zonya's got Flash. But there is a lot of point.
They want to do the catching here, Jamada.
They want, yeah, there's a lot of fishing going on here from BLG's part.
I mean, if you think about it, that's the way their comp works, right? Like, they do have a decent 5v5 situationally, but definitely looking at the picks before objectives, before fights, to be BLG's bread and butter.
Yeah, they can definitely prey on the lack of information that FPX could have around objectives. That's for sure, because, I mean, imagine walking into the deep, dark jungle, all of a sudden, you see that line from Camille's hook shot before she appears out of Fog of War, and all of a sudden there's a Vi, there's a Galio, oh, and there's a massive tidal wave before Elk one-shots you. So, you've got to be careful. But for now, it seems like BLG, despite putting a pretty firm grip on the vision on both sides of the jungle, a couple of reset signs come through. FPX will have a brief moment of respite to be able to wrest some control back on the map.
So, I want to go on a little bit of soapbox here. We talked earlier about the kind of FPX Blaze call-ups across the roster for FPX as a whole, 4 out of 5 members, right? Maybe little known fact, FPX Blaze won LDL in summer. It was no small feat to be able to take it all the way and take the summer championship. So these guys are not shy to adversity within a series and within a game, right? I think there's a lot of scrappiness that comes from this kind of roster for FPX, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they've kept 1,000 gold deficit this whole game, even though they had just leaked all those kills earlier on, and now trying to find a way to get their, honestly, better team fight into positions to win.
Yeah, even then, you can tell the mentality is still very much fishing for FPX on the other side, right? I think haoye just looked for it right there over the wall. As a bit of a cat and mouse going on in the
That's
mid lane,
a problem, though.
It's buying time for Bin to do what we know Bin does and take side lane tower. So he's going to just pocket that 600 gold quite happily. Xiaolaohu is now finally going to answer him, but BLG winning out on the map pressure side of things. FPX have to make their mind up really on what they want to do. And maybe it's just go in now.
He made the mind up. They're split on damage, though. Care does pick out Elk. You get the cease and desist as well coming through. Shun helps shut that down, though. Big engage with the all-out Hextech ultimatum, and Bin is down. FPX pulling 2 members of BLG off for just 1, and they have a wave on mid lane as well.
Yes, they do. Go towards the tower. I feel like they just take this tower, go collect that dragon, stop BLG from getting to Soul Point. Really good engage again from FPX. We said they were fishing beforehand, right? But then they just go all out for the engage on the back half of it. Double TPs come down from both the top laners, but Xiaolaohu again that has more impact in this team fight. You just see cease and desist.
Care just says, let's go.
Doesn't matter. Yeah, Care just says, let's go. All the lockdown from the Everfrost, the burst damage comes through. Nothing you can do about it. Unfortunately for haoye, it just goes a little bit too deep looking for on, but at the end of the day, there's enough disruption coming through. And you see Xiaolaohu just brings Bin back in with that all out. And such a powerful CC, even when it's just a short distance brought back from Xiaolaohu. All he has to do is reposition somebody that doesn't want to be in the middle of 4 or 5 members. And
damn, that damage.
Go down. Woo! Yeah, look at that Care, man. Still putting out the damage.
That's,
really
yeah. I mean, I can't laud Care more. Like, we set up, like, okay, Bin is like the real 1v9 in this one, okay, guys? But really, Care is okay. Like, Care is the one that's showing out here. Like, he's ready for break. He's like, I'm gonna get myself an unkilled game before we go on to Chinese New Year. No big deal. He's got his comfort of the Sylas. They let him have this, and it's working out beautifully. Now we have BLG starting up the Baron.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, actually, they could have banned it. They banned away the Jace and the Akali instead, but BLG on this Baron is burning low.
Tidal wave is out.
Sidestepped.
A little bit of an engage. Okay, double cyclone, triple. They got the knockups. FPX.
Good.
What? This is a beautiful fight for FPX. This is the fight they won. They do a ton of damage on Elk, and Care finds the backline, but he gets shut down himself. That's 800 gold to Shun, but LWX is firing those lasers. Will he find the slow? No, he doesn't. Xiaolaohu backs up. He is the tank right now. He is the frontliner. They stop BLG trying to do the Baron.
Oh, boy.
Here comes the engage from Yagao. He has a little bit of speed. He wants to try to get the taunt down. Xiaolaohu. Oh, no, wait. They find him, actually. The double Everfrost as well. Haoye is down. Hextech Ultimatum onto LWX. They get the all out, but it's not out of the Hextech Ultimatum. Flash comes out from LWX. He's kiting him, but is it enough? He's trying to survive, and a triple kill for Elk will seal the deal, and BLG are right back in it.
All right, we thought FPX had a bit of room to work with, but apparently BLG are just too damn good in the team fights. No one on BLG drops from the initial engage from FPX, and eventually the re-engage comes through with Yagao teleporting, finding a bit of a flank counter. They finally locked down all of the other members. Care had locked down on Elk in the initial engage, but there wasn't enough follow-up damage that came through. I think he'd already expended his Everfrost, if I recall correctly, so there was no additional lockdown. You'll see, you can have BLG on the Baron, trying to dissuade the initial engage. Haoye does a great job, actually, of actually locking down the initial members on the front line to almost bring down Yagao.
The fact they don't get Elk here.
Yeah, and the fact they also don't get Elk, I mean, the turnaround from BLG to lock down Care to stop that from going on is excellent. And it's just a bit of a split focus for a brief moment from FPX where they're looking for Yagao and then Care goes in and finds the actual core target they need. Yagao then comes in, teleport, locks down the jungler. And from this point on, it's pretty much just 3 versus 5, where unfortunately FPX just don't really have the damage anymore or the peel to stop this from going on.
Xiaolaohu coming around the horn there on the blue side, I feel like was a big difference maker in that one. He was with the team on the other side. He wasn't able to join up, wasn't able to be that front liner. So I think that was a big, at least decision-making snafu here for FPX. And now they're into their base having to defend. They have 2 minutes to defend against this Baron buff for BLG. And you have Bin in the side lane. You have things going really well for BLG and not a lot of defense to come out from LWX and FPX.
Yeah, no, I mean, FPX don't really have the best wave clear, so dealing with Baron is going to be really tough. They can already be pulled apart just by having been on one side of the map as is, and there's not any towers on the outside base remaining. The mid lane tier 3 already cracked open, inhib there for the taking as and when BLG won it. And Bin, I mean, he can just sit here all day if he wants to. So much damage being demonstrated onto the decoy, albeit, but that will happen to the real thing.
Yeah,
don't get it twisted at all.
A lot of presence down bottom lane now as inhib has been cracked in the mid lane. Top side slowly pushing, but BLG putting a lot of eggs into the bot lane basket right now at the last minute of their Baron buff. They should be able to get this inhib with this big old wave coming in. LWX will still try to clear up mid wave, and that'll be a quick, easy cleanup for BLG to take down the bottom side of FPX's base.
2 easy inhibs. BLG all of a sudden just on track to close this one out. FPX lose a lot out of that Baron fight and the Baron itself. Dragon spawning in 30 seconds. Maybe they can find something to fight for, but they find themselves all of a sudden 6,000 gold down. I think just give this Dragon up.
I think that's the most difficult
the LPL way, but give it up. See if you can scale a little bit more. See if you can get LWX to his Infinity Edge. See if that can be the difference maker, because right now, BLG are cruising to a game 1 victory all across the board. Items coming in. Elk even has a Serpent's Fan just to ensure that some of the obnoxious shields coming through from the likes of Lele and Xiaolaohu, don't forget, on Ksante, he can shield his allies. So that is there, but more or less just spending the gold to say, I had enough of this, so I'll buy it, and this will probably be my last outing, but Serpent's Fang will find a little bit of value. And it's over as they pick up the Dragon through Bin. Yeah, 4 items. BLG will look towards almost certainly that final inhib just as a point of pressure. And FPX have to try and answer somewhere. They have to try and engage before they actually get set up on, but I think already BLG too far in position for that time.
And I want to dissect this game a little bit more so as we're potentially getting to the tying knots of BLG. It was a very scrappy game from FPX. I think a lot of times, I mean, it was within 1,000 gold for the longest time, right? It has just only recently exploded to that 6,000 plus lead. But I think FPX found a lot of positives, especially through Care, and he still has that potential. They still have at least one more miracle team fight in them. And they do have a Zeri and a Yuumi, and they have a Sylas who's kind of popping off here. So FPX might have one more death knell in them. Haoye is trying to look for a side lane there. Care getting the cease and desist here. They have a lot of setup to catch out Elk.
That's been pivotal so far. Care having that cease and desist to actually lock down Elk. It just needs to be followed up on, and if they can quickly eliminate the AD carry of BLG, 5v4 fight looks really, really good for them, as it would any other team, but especially if Elk is off the map. He's been so pivotal.
Oh,
they're actually looking for Shun.
They're going for Shun. He's very tanky, though, with the Radiant Virtue as well, and they're just bursting down Care. He doesn't get hit by the bubble, and nicely done with the double knockouts from Xiaolaohu. And no, Yagao trying to clean up the rest of FPX. Here's LWX, though, and that's what we're talking about. The AoE damage, if you leave LWX, he will burn you down, but their base is also burning.
It is, but crucially, that was a lot of work coming in from Xiaolaohu. Double knock back into a double W as well. Oh, LWX.
Oh my god, that's a lot of damage. Elk with the kill onto the ADC of FPX.
My goodness me. Lucian, Nami, 3-4 items in. Still capable of doing that. BLG, they'll pick up the third inhibitor. Serpent's Fang cuts down the shield book. So, you know, finding the lethal there. FPX did such a good job of making that team fight work, but they still end up losing out just as they feel like they had a moment to breathe, clear away some of the waves left up. Because you have triple inhib and 30 seconds until this Baron spawns up, which will almost certainly be what the prize is for them. Let's see what FPX can do once that buff comes in, because you suspect it will. Ultimate onto Shun, a bit questionable at first, honestly, but the Zhonya stops a lot of the follow-up engage. The root cancels Yagao's ultimate as well, and you can just see all the CC coming through from Xiaolaohu, who sets the entirety of FPX up for a really solid fight. The disengage is good, and then you can see LWX just has so much damage available to him. He hasn't been able to use it, though, throughout so much of the game. 3 items, he is here, but the Baron, like you say, that's the next portal call. FPX have to try and get here, but it's going to get burned very quickly. At best, they could hope for a fight afterwards, but they just make the call. Give it up, deal with the triple inhib, deal with the Baron, and see if we can find one last miracle team fight. BLG have all the cards in their hands. FPX have to try and make a lot of work happen against what feels like a full house.
Not gonna lie, I didn't know Phoenixes could turn into turtles, but that's what we're getting at this point, because FPX just need to turtle this out and find a way to win a 5v5 fight. It will have to happen in front of their Nexus towers, as BLG are coming to bear on them with over 6,000 gold difference and a lot of confidence, at least, as Haoye goes in, gets about half his health taken on, trying to take down on. Got himself half health, but all out, not there actually just yet from Xiaolaohu, who they're onto the Nexus towers with Bin on the side and Culling coming through onto Care. Care goes in. He is immediately locked down and shut down. Heroic entrance comes through for BLG, and they have done just that in this game 1 of this best of 3 series. LWX has done a lot in this game, but he did not find a kill, and BLG found 17 of them, maybe just 18 here if Haoye goes down, but he is too slippery, and BLG clean up game number 1.
Yep, really, really good looks from BLG to carry out that lead. I think definitely a lot of positive talking points from both sides, though.
Yeah.
I think coming into this game, we had a lot of expectations on what FPX could do, especially on what BLG could do, of course. BLG, however, definitely the leaders in this game by a long shot. Yeah, once they had control of that top side, it just felt like FPX couldn't quite find the coherent team fights that brought them back into that game in the beginning of the comeback itself. I think realistically, you just had to find one extra member outside of just Care on the core target that was being hunted down by himself, and maybe there was a little bit to work with. They got to the core items eventually through LWX. It wasn't enough. BLG just stamped their authority on the game slowly but surely through those later game team fights, and I think it's just a bit too hard to deal with the likes of the Camille on the side lane, and of course Elk and On were doing a fantastic job throughout the game, not just in the early stages of finding the picks. And I mean, honestly, the pick on LWX gave them tempo to find that final Baron.
But I think a big standout for me in the early game, at least, obviously got a little bit more scrappy when we got to the mid game and objectives, was that Shun had found multiple ganks on top side. He even showed mid, found a gank on bot side, and we didn't get exactly that as a response from haoye. And I think that was a big question mark coming into this one. How would haoye react to Shun's very aggressive style and very control-heavy style, especially now that he's going with this facilitating style jungle as well? And I think we got our answer, at least at game number 1. I think in game 2, it'll be a big question mark as well.
Yeah, no, I think on haoye's end, he did enough in some of those team fights. I just think him and Care as a duo needed to try and find a bit more of a link up together. I think that was the sort of biggest takeaway from both of them in this game. But look at the damage Lwx put out. He was really trying to get as much work as he could done. I said earlier on, it felt like he wasn't getting the damage out he needed, but very clearly he was. Lwx, but BLG definitely doing more than enough satisfactory work. Elk on that Lucian pretty much from minute 1, right? In the duo with On finding the advantage and basically taking it all the way home. It was just very heroic team fighting from FPX, and 1 or 2 oversteps from BLG, which I'm sure they'll look to clean up in game number 2, which gave FPX a bit of an in.
Yeah, and I think conceptually that's where this game maybe fell off rails a little bit early, where it was very obvious that Shun wanted to get Ben ahead early. I mean, he multi-ganked topside to try and get that going, and then all of a sudden, after that second gank goes through, and they're like, okay, we got our game plan going, got the 1 kill, double kill bot lane. It's like, oh, cool, we just get to run away with this one. But they didn't, in all actuality. I mean, it did take a lot of effort. The team fighting was definitely there for FPX, and that's where I wondered, does FPX opt into that more so going into game 2, or do we see this kind of same adaptation from them?
Yeah, I mean, well, the race though, right? I think if they get the case study from this game that Elk and On are probably going to dominate the 2v2 bot, they can definitely look towards it. But I feel like with Bin playing in the way that he is, Shun already giving him the resources, they can just utilize both sides. I don't feel like there's too big of an issue. Bin has already shown us through his first series in JDG that he is more than capable of being very self-sufficient. So honestly, it's really up to them on how they want to execute this next game. I feel like for FPX, trying to enable Care again, and also as a duo, Care and haoye actually linking up in some of those mid-game team fights can be the difference maker here, because they weren't too far behind.
Yeah, we'll see if BLG closes us out 2-0 in our first series, or if we get to go